All right. Welcome again to another edition of Inside Leadership. Today we have Mo Anderson. And if you are not inside of Keller Williams, you may not know who Mo is. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself, what makes her tick, before we get into the program today. So Mo, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became you.
Well, I am a tenant farmer's daughter, and a tenant farmer is like a sharecropper. They share the crop with the owner of the land. And because I grew up in poverty, I'm so grateful. I never dreamed I'd be grateful for growing up in poverty, but I am, because it taught me two things. It taught me, number one, a work ethic that I would put up against anybody. And
no
number
doubt.
two, it taught me a sense of gratitude, because now the smallest things are so exciting to me, for which I am so grateful. And so the work ethic and the gratitude has taken me far. I went to public school, graduated from high school, worked my way through the University of Oklahoma, acquired some college debt, of course, and couldn't do the fun things that kids usually do at a university because I didn't have the money. But I worked hard, got a degree in elementary education. I wanted to become a music teacher, but I couldn't get to the practice rooms to practice because I was working my way through school. And so I had to give up that dream. But the exciting thing that I learned is that when there is a dream in your DNA, it comes true in spite of your circumstances. And so in my first interview after graduating from the University of Oklahoma, I interviewed with a principal of an elementary school. And at the end of the interview, he said, "Mo, would you consider the possibility of teaching music in our school?" I nearly fainted and fell out of my chair and said yes as loud as I could.
Awesome.
And so I got to be a music teacher anyway, in spite of the fact that I could not major in music because they locked the practice rooms at 10 o'clock at night, and I didn't get home from work until then.
So what instrument did you specialize in?
Well, piano.
Okay.
And then, of course, I took as many elementary education music classes that I could take. Any elective, I would select one of those classes. I absolutely loved teaching music. I was in a school system where I had the children every day. And that's where I learned about the importance of standards. And I taught on the other side of the tracks. I taught the poor kids. Almost everybody in our school really struggled. Well, I grew up that way. So guess what? I didn't give them any slack. So I had high standards. And what I learned is when you have high standards on your team or in your market center, the higher they are, the more the people try to rise up to those standards. The lower they are, then you stymie growth. And so I made up my mind when I was a child that when I grew up, I wanted to make more money than I needed. Well, I quickly learned in teaching, you can't do that. You don't make more money than you need. So my husband came home one day and said, "I've enrolled you in a class." And I said, "What class?" He said, "A real estate class." And I said, "You what? You enrolled me in a real estate class? Why did you do that?" And of course, I then entered into the business, struggled my first year, became successful the second 6 months, and I've loved it ever since, and discovered that the students were just taller.
I love that. And now fast forward a couple, 3 or 4 years, and you are now, your position inside of Keller Williams is?
Well, I met Gary when I was 54 years old. That was 1991, I think. I opened Oklahoma as the first region outside of the offices he had in Texas. So I was the pioneer who built the first region. And we did so well in Oklahoma that 3 years later, he asked me if I would come and be his partner and help him grow Keller Williams Realty across the United States. This was before we even dreamed of foreign markets. And so I told him he wanted me to move to Austin. And I said, well, Gary, I will move to Austin on the condition that you give me ownership in the company. And he said, how much do you want? I told him, and he said yes so fast that, John, I knew I should have asked for more. But the amount that I asked for has blessed me greatly. So it all turned out just fine.
It turned out pretty good, didn't it? So we may have just answered the next question, but let me ask it anyhow. What's one of the best investments that you've ever made, whether it was time, money, human capital, whatever the case is?
The best investment I ever made was to be obedient and work when I was a child, because that's where the work ethic began. And of course, I was on a farm, and the work never ends on a farm. It's far more difficult to teach a child a work ethic in a big city as it is. It's much easier on a farm because the work never ends. And I had very little time for play, and it was primarily work. And I developed such a great work ethic that the work involved in giving birth to a company did not scare me.
Excellent. That is an answer that I would have not expected, and I love that. Thank you very much. So what's one quirk or odd thing about you that others may not know?
Well, most everything about me, others know. I've been told I'm far too transparent. Well, I would say this. In my day, because I'm 85 years old, my next birthday, when Red Day comes around again, I'll be 86. And what most people don't know is that I absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the work ethic played such a major role. And let me tell you what they don't know about me. When I came aboard Keller Williams as CEO at the age of 57, there were 1,800 agents in 45 offices. And when I did the analysis on the company, I discovered that 15 of those 45 offices were doing nothing. So I closed them. I went eyeball to eyeball with each owner and said, my conscience will not let you lose any more money. So within 30 days, you may sell your office if you can find a buyer. And of course, they didn't have anything to sell but hard assets, chairs and desks. And I just can't let you lose any more money. I seem to respect your capital more than you do. And so I brought it down to 30. In the process, I analyzed the 30 market centers that were left and decided that 17 of them needed new team leaders. So I talked the owners into dehiring their team leaders and getting new team leaders so that we would have a chance to grow. 10 years later, when I left, that was 2005 when I did that. And when I replaced myself with Mark Willis in 2010, excuse my voice, I'm beginning to get some bronchitis. I want you to know that we had 50,000 agents and we had 510 offices. So
That's an amazing growth over that time frame.
So the moral to the story is you sometimes have to be willing to go through the pain and the agony of cleanup. And that is not fun because, see, I thought I was going to Austin to grow it. And when I got there and I saw how much money Gary was losing and that he couldn't forever continue to support the birth of the nationwide office with his 2 market centers that he had at the time in Austin. And so it was a very, very, very difficult time. I wouldn't consider quitting because I knew his models would work. How did I know they would work? Because I had done the same thing in a little office in Edmond, Oklahoma. We had profit share 2 levels down, 2 levels. His was 7 levels.
Yep.
I had an ALC that I called an advisory board. He had an agent leadership council, but they functioned the same way. So I had experienced profit share and the synergism it created. I had experienced an agent leadership council. And then I saw the brilliance of his economic model because I knew that with his economic model, in a downturn of the economy, you usually don't lose your top agents and your really solid cappers. You lose new people and those who aren't quite capping. And so those 3 things, plus seeing the Y4C2Ts, I'd never seen a business before lay out their belief system. And that touched my heart at a deep level. And I wanted to become a part of Keller Williams when I first heard about it. Gary accidentally, it was really a God thing, found me. I'd never heard of him, had never heard of Keller Williams. And I'm so grateful that Gary found me because our partnership was pretty special. I could do the things he couldn't do, and he did all of these things I certainly couldn't do. So we filled the gap with each other. And a lot of people don't know that history. And I'm really proud of it. And when the book is written, there better be a chapter on Mo.
I'm sure there'll be more than one. I'm sure
Oh,
there
I
will.
doubt it.
So, Mo, what habit do you have that most positively affects your life and your mindset?
You know, it's a habit I developed after I met Gary, and that is controlling your time until noon. Getting up early, having your quiet time, then your exercise time, and then your eating and kissing your family goodbye time, and getting to the office so that you can lead generate those 3 hours from 9 to 12. That changed my life. And when I slip away from that, if I just kick that discipline back in, then I'm right back on track.
Excellent. Love that. So what bad advice do you most often hear in our profession?
The market's out of control, which it has been the last few years.
Yeah.
And I can't get my offers through. There were 40 offers and everybody offered $100,000 more than the asking price. Now I hear, oh, the market's slowing down. Woe is me, the market is slowing down. And all of that is such nonsense because the market is what the market is. And you have to adjust to it. And if you want to know how to adjust to the market, read the book Shift, and it will tell you the 12 things, or is it 14? I've forgotten.
It's 12.
It's the 12 things that you do when a shift in the market occurs, because I don't care what the market's doing. There are still people that have to buy and sell. And I heard just yesterday an agent whine and complain, well, I'm just not getting any listings and I'm not getting any leads. Well, did you do what the shift book tells you to do? Because what you do is you double your lead generation time. And if you double whatever time you're lead generating, you'll get business. Duh.
And shift, I've been working with this a lot with the agents on our team, and shift 5, tactic 5 is the one we're spending a lot of time on right now, which is developing your skill set to convert from a conversation to an appointment. That is the most important skill set that agents seem to forget about. So now, on the topic of books, what book or books do you most often recommend and why?
Well, there are a number of books that that I recommend. One is The Dream Giver by Wilkinson.
Okay.
And that it's a little book. It doesn't take long at all to read it, but I'm telling you, if a person can understand the difference between a dream bully and a dream buddy and begin to understand that God puts dreams in our DNA, magic can happen. And this little book will either generate the ability to begin to dream again, because so many adults quit that. It's so fun to see a little child dream, and then something happens when they grow up and they stop dreaming. Because I was poor, I dreamed all the time. I dreamed about living in a house that didn't have rats and mice and snakes and rain and snow in it. I dreamed about all the things I didn't have that I wanted, which motivated me to begin to dream about making more money than I needed. And that happened to me. And now the greatest joy I have in life is being able to give that money away. It is so joyful to me. There is no joy greater than giving for me. You know, maybe there is for other people, but I cannot begin to tell you the joy I find in giving. And when Gary was teaching about being $1 million real estate agent and being $1 million giver, you know, I just latched onto that really fast, because if I made more money than I needed, then I had something to give away. Because when you're a child and you can't give a birthday present, you don't have the money to give your folks a Christmas present. Any gift I ever gave was something I made. And I wasn't a great seamstress, let me tell you. Another book that I highly recommend is, now I've forgotten the author's name, Inside Out. And the book is about changing yourself from the inside out. Jason, he was supposed to run my book list off so I'd have the authors.
That's okay. Inside Out is the name of the book?
Is the name of the book. And that book was life-changing for me. It's a deep book. It's a difficult book to read, because you have to really concentrate to get the meaning out of these long, beautiful sentences. It is a religious book. It's written by a Christian.
Larry Crabb.
I love his books. Okay. And this one, oh my, it was probably for me the most profound book I've ever read. But you do have to really focus when you're reading that book, especially. His other books are easier to read. I just finished reading a book called A Born to Rise. And it was written by Sherry Cole, the women's basketball coach of the OU basketball girls team. And she is an amazing author. She had written a series of essays over the years. She was an English major in college, loved literature, learned to write very, very well. And she recently retired as a coach. In her second half, she wants to be an author. We had a book signing for her here the other night, and of course, she gave everybody here a book, and I started reading it. And in one chapter, I wept all the way through the chapter. She touched me so deeply. It was about her father. It was a story about her father. And she compares living to the redwood trees. I didn't know this till I read her book, but the redwood trees in California that grow so tall and they are so huge and they are so stately, have an underground root system where the roots cling to each other. And that's what gives them the strength to withstand the storms. And so she divides the book into shallow roots and deeper roots, and there are 4 parts in the book. And then she talks about the people who have had an impact on her life at each stage of her life. And I love the book. I'm going to buy 50 copies or 100 copies, and everybody's going to get one at Christmas.
That's excellent. Excellent. Love that. And I am growing a reading list from these interviews, and these are certainly going to be included in that. And once that's put together, I'll make sure you get a copy of it, because you know what? There are very few duplicates, which is really surprising to me. Very few duplicates, and I love that. So, Mo, what happens when you find you need to reset? How do you reset yourself?
Well, the thing that will help me reset is for me to go teach Quantum Leap in a region. And I do that. I try to do that once a quarter, because teaching that helps me reset if I need to reset. I've learned to maintain discipline for long periods of time, but every now and then you need to reset. So when I teach people the disciplines of money, the disciplines of time, the disciplines of mindset, and so on and so forth that we teach in adult Quantum Leap. I'm not talking about the kids' scares. It always helps me go back and become recommitted to controlling that first half of my day. Because no matter if you're trying to slow down a little bit like I am, because, I'm getting up there in age, I don't know how much time I have left. And I do want to I want to end well, is what I want to do. And yet I want to be an example for all of our agents that you don't quit when you're 65. I cannot find that principle in scripture anywhere. And I said my 70s was my best decade, but you know what? My 80s is really coming in strong. And even though I have a few health challenges, which I never ever had before, I'm not letting it slow me down or get me in any way. I just keep charging forward, and I love teaching Quantum Leap. That's one of my favorite things to do. And then I get to go to Florida to be at South Florida's inspirational breakfast. And I've been invited to another region for their inspirational breakfast, or maybe it's their cultural summit. I can't remember. And just getting to share with them my thoughts and my ideas about culture and what can make their market center so unique within that marketplace. When they really get it, is just something I love to do. So that's how I refocus, is go teach.
That. Mo, thank you for that. Now, is there anything else you'd like to add as we wrap up today?
Well, life is short. I just cannot believe that I'm 85. I feel 40. And, you know, the body on days tells me it's 85, but the mind tells me I'm still 40. And nobody's going to care at the end of your life how many things you have in your inbox. Nobody's going to care at all how many sales you made. All they're going to care about is how much you cared.
Mm-hmm.
And we get caught up in being so busy. And the country is so divided now, and things are so crazy that sometimes we fail to stop long enough to think about caring. Who is it we're going to care for? I'm going to close the speech that I'm going to give soon and tell us a biblical story. I like to use sports stories and biblical stories to illustrate a point.
Okay.
And King David was king of the Israelites when this story occurred long, long ago.
Mm-hmm. And
he even had, when he was king, he had a SEALs team. He didn't call it that, but it was 37 men who were really, really special. He had thousands in his army, but his SEAL team consisted of 37 men. Out of the 37 men, he had 3 that were super elite. One of them was named Shammah, Shammah. And there's only 2 verses in the Old Testament that tells about him. But it was pretty amazing because they were ready to go into battle against their enemy. And Shammah decided to protect his bean patch. An acre or 2 or 3 where they grew the beans, and he hid in that bean patch. And he was able to protect that bean patch and slaughter every enemy soldier that tried to take over the bean patch. So he knew that if he didn't protect that bean patch and they took over the bean patch, they would take over the hills. And if they took over the hills in the countrysides, they would be able to take over the cities. So my question to everybody in our company is, what bean patch are you going to protect? Well, my bean patch is Keller Williams. I want to protect, however I can, for as long as I live, the culture of caring, giving, and sharing in our company. So what's your bean patch?
Love it. Mo Anderson, co-owner of Keller Williams, former CEO of Keller Williams, and absolute cultural icon of our company. Thank you very much for your time today.
I've loved it. Thank you for inviting me, John. You're the best.